What if everything you thought was untouchable collapsed in just minutes? What if the world's most fortified nation, the one believed to be invincible, was left exposed, stunned, and silenced? Not by sheer power, but by brilliance, timing, and precision. This isn't fiction, this is real, and it just happened. In this powerful and eye-opening speech, we take you deep into the heart of a moment that shook the world. The night Israel's defenses crumbled and Iran's new tactic rewrote the rules of modern warfare. This isn't just a military story. It's a psychological breakthrough, a strategic masterpiece, and a wake-up call for nations, leaders, and people everywhere. You'll hear how silence became the loudest weapon, how fear shifted sides, and how the myth of dominance cracked before the eyes of a watching world. So sit tight. What you're about to hear isn't just a breakdown of events. It's a revelation, a moment in history that will echo far beyond the battlefield. Stay with us till the end, because what you're about to witness may just change the way you see power, war, and truth forever. Iran's success in this confrontation began with the most ancient yet effective strategy in warfare, the element of surprise. For decades, Israel has been seen as one of the most sophisticated nations when it comes to intelligence gathering, early warning systems, and preemptive defense. Its alliance with global surveillance networks, satellite coverage, and extensive spy operations across the Middle East has built an image of a state that always sees the threat before it materializes. But this time, Iran broke the pattern. Their new tactic wasn't just about firepower. It was about deception, timing, and understanding the blind spots of a powerful enemy. The operation was planned in deep silence, bypassing the usual digital footprints that spy satellites and listening posts detect. Communication was carried out using analog methods, offline briefings, and compartmentalized cells, leaving no digital trail behind. Iran didn't just plan a strike. It orchestrated an invisible movement. The actual moment of attack felt like lightning to Israeli command centers. Defense operators, who were accustomed to early alerts and real-time tracking, were blindsided. The suddenness of the strike wasn't due to Israel being asleep, but rather to Iran moving in a way Israel had never seen before. The precision of Iran's launch timing coincided with internal Israeli command rotations, ensuring a temporary lapse in decision-making capacity. In the minutes that followed, Israeli air defense units scrambled to understand what had happened. Systems that should have been ready were caught unprepared. Command chains faced communication overload, and automated response sequences were momentarily delayed. This level of precision and timing doesn't come from brute force. It comes from mastering the opponent's routines, anticipating their assumptions, and weaponizing their confidence. Iran's surprise wasn't just in what they hit, but how invisible they remained until the first explosions shook the ground. The psychological effect was immediate. Israeli military morale took a blow, not because of the physical damage, but because of the realization that their shield was penetrated without warning. This breach challenged the core assumption that Israel's sky is impenetrable. For the first time in years, its enemies saw proof that timing, strategy, and innovation could render even the most high-tech defenses ineffective. And for the Israeli public, used to the reassurance of early alerts and interception visuals, the silence before the blast was more terrifying than the blast itself. Iran's use of electronic warfare in the attack marked a dramatic evolution in modern conflict. While the world expected missile exchanges and physical clashes, what unfolded instead was a silent, invisible wave that paralyzed Israel's most advanced defense systems. The assault began not with rockets, but with algorithms. Sophisticated jamming signals, cyber viruses, and electromagnetic interference were unleashed on Israel's military infrastructure, targeting satellite links, radar communications, and missile command software. Within seconds, systems that usually operate in perfect synchronization were thrown into chaos. The Iron Dome, which had earned global admiration for intercepting incoming rockets with precision, was rendered confused and ineffective. Its sensors either failed to lock onto targets or misfired, overwhelmed by conflicting signals and corrupted data streams. Iran had studied Israel's digital battlefield for years, understanding not just its hardware, but how the pieces connected, how information flowed from sensors to decision makers to automated systems. With this knowledge, they didn't need to destroy the shield physically. They just had to blind it long enough for real damage to be done. Israeli technicians were caught in a digital storm. Screens went dark, false alerts multiplied, and secure networks failed to respond. The central command centers tried to reroute control through backups, but the delay was costly. In modern warfare, seconds decide outcomes. Iran's ability to neutralize defenses electronically for even a brief window was all it needed to open a path for its missiles and drones. What made this tactic so devastating was its subtlety. There were no explosions from the jamming signals, no visible warning signs, just silence, and then impact. This method forced Israel into a reactive position, something it rarely experiences. Military experts around the world watched this moment closely, recognizing that the battlefield had shifted from deserts and skies to invisible frequencies and lines of code. Iran's electronic warfare wasn't just a distraction. It was the first strike. It dictated the rhythm of the entire confrontation. Even after the physical damage was assessed, Israeli defense forces struggled with internal system recoveries, delayed communications, and the chilling realization that their digital fortress was vulnerable. It was a display of power not through destruction, but through disruption. A kind of warfare that doesn't just attack a nation's weapons, but its very confidence. Iran's combination of hypersonic missiles and drone swarm tactics was the most visibly disruptive component of the attack, and it exposed a fatal weakness in Israel's layered air defense strategy. While systems like Iron Dome and David Sling are engineered to intercept traditional rockets and cruise missiles, they were never fully stress-tested against a multi-dimensional simultaneous assault of this scale. Hypersonic missiles, traveling at speeds exceeding Mach 5, offer almost no time for interception. By the time a radar detects them, they are already closing in on their target. Iran launched a small number of these missiles with deadly precision, targeting high-value command posts and air defense centers. But the real brilliance came in pairing them with something far less sophisticated: drones. Hundreds of drones, cheap and expendable, were launched in swarms, creating a layered cloud of confusion for Israeli radar. The drone swarm was not designed to do the bulk of the destruction. It was a distraction, a smokescreen in the sky that lit up radar systems, overloaded targeting software, and created a flood of incoming signals. Israeli defenses had to choose: respond to what looked like hundreds of threats, or try to identify the truly dangerous ones among them. This cognitive and technical overload disrupted interception sequences. As defense batteries attempted to lock onto drones, the hypersonic missiles tore through the airspace unnoticed and unstoppable. The speed and altitude of the hypersonics, combined with the low and chaotic paths of the drones, created a layered dilemma no automated system could fully process in time. This tactic was not just a show of strength. It was a lesson in asymmetry. Iran didn't match Israel's system for system. Instead, it found the weak points between those systems. The missiles struck too fast, and the drones flew too many. Together, they dismantled the assumption that layered defense guarantees layered safety. By deploying high-tech and low-tech together, Iran showed that dominance in one arena could be neutralized with creativity in another. The sheer coordination required for this operation also demonstrated how far Iran's military planning had come. It wasn't just a rush of chaos, it was choreographed chaos. Israel, known for its ability to detect, calculate, and respond with precision, found itself overwhelmed, not because it lacked weapons, but because it lacked time. Iran's approach to targeting in this operation revealed a deep understanding of strategic warfare. Instead of launching a massive, indiscriminate barrage meant to cause civilian casualties or widespread destruction, Iran chose precision over quantity. Each missile, each drone, was aimed at a node of military power. Air defense command centers, radar stations, intelligence headquarters, and air bases that served as the backbone of Israel's early warning and response systems. This tactic did more than just inflict physical damage. It symbolically dismantled the image of invincibility Israel had built over decades. Rather than targeting cities or civilian infrastructure, Iran's missiles flew towards silence, the hidden machinery that makes military strength possible. The message was clear: Iran was not lashing out in rage, but operating with intention, discipline, and strategy. The strikes showed remarkable restraint, even as they delivered deep impact. It was a form of warfare that undermined Israel's superiority from the inside out. By going after systems instead of populations, Iran avoided giving Israel the emotional high ground that often comes with civilian suffering. This allowed Iran to control the narrative internationally, positioning itself as a calculated actor rather than an aggressor driven by vengeance. Moreover, the precision of the targeting hinted at a highly sophisticated intelligence capability. Iran knew not just what to hit, but when and how. It struck while key personnel rotations were in motion, while radar systems were under maintenance windows, and during gaps in aerial patrols. The timing of each hit felt orchestrated, not random. That level of coordination requires real-time intelligence, cyber reconnaissance, and a network of surveillance assets far more capable than what many believed Iran possessed. The psychological effect of this strategy was even greater than the physical destruction it caused. Israeli defense officials were left grappling with the realization that their most sensitive and critical sites were vulnerable to pinpoint strikes. It caused a ripple of uncertainty throughout the military establishment. Confidence in the reliability of Israel's secure facilities was shaken. Questions arose about internal security, satellite dependency, and whether the enemy knew more than they should. For a military that prides itself on control and foresight, this surgical dismantling felt more dangerous than a full-scale invasion. Iran had proven it could break Israel's shield, not with a hammer, but with a scalpel. The global reaction to Iran's lightning strike on Israel was defined more by silence than by statements. And in that silence lay a deep collective shock. For decades, Israel has stood as the military titan of the Middle East, backed by Western powers, particularly the United States, and armed with some of the most advanced defense systems known to modern warfare. When news broke that Iranian forces had breached Israeli air defenses, disabled critical systems, and executed a strike with surgical precision, all within minutes, the initial response from international powers was not condemnation, but hesitation. Governments that usually rush to issue statements of support or retaliation went quiet. This moment of global stillness was not a coincidence. It was a reflection of just how unprecedented and unnerving the event truly was. Israel's vulnerability was on display not just to its enemies but to its allies. The collapse of its defenses wasn't a result of overwhelming numbers or chaotic warfare. It was the product of a carefully calculated tactic that exposed weaknesses many assumed didn't exist. For nations that have long viewed Israel as an untouchable fortress, this was a wake-up call. Military analysts and defense ministries around the world began reassessing the very foundations of modern defense strategy. If a heavily fortified and constantly surveilled nation like Israel could be penetrated this quickly, then what did that say about the rest of the world's preparedness? The usual rhetoric of unconditional support was replaced by brief, cautious statements. Behind closed doors, meetings intensified, not about retaliation, but about damage control, intelligence reassessment, and regional stability. The silence, in many ways, was more telling than any words could have been. It conveyed uncertainty, fear, and respect for what had just occurred. Even nations that often criticized Iran found themselves hesitating, weighing the geopolitical consequences of confronting a power that had just demonstrated extraordinary tactical sophistication. This global pause also revealed a shift in the balance of psychological power in the region. Iran had delivered a blow that reached far beyond the battlefield. It had sent a message to the world that its capabilities were no longer just regional threats, but global considerations. And for the people watching around the globe, especially in Arab and Muslim-majority countries, the silence from Western powers was interpreted as acknowledgement not just of Iran's success, but of Israel's fallibility. Iran's calculated and overwhelming strike on Israel didn't just send shockwaves through military circles. It reshaped the psychological fabric of the Middle East. For years, Israel's dominance was not just based on its advanced technology or superior firepower, but on the fear it instilled in the region. That fear created an invisible barrier around the Israeli state, one that made adversaries hesitant, restrained, and cautious. But when Iran managed to strike deep into the heart of Israel's defense network in a matter of minutes, something far greater than defense systems collapsed. The psychological armor of invincibility shattered, and with it, the long-standing perception that Israel was beyond reach. This shift wasn't just felt in Tehran or Tel Aviv, it rippled across the entire region, from resistance groups in Lebanon and Gaza to rival powers in the Gulf and beyond. The event served as living proof that strategic innovation could overcome even the most fortified strongholds. Iran's success did not merely inspire admiration, it redefined what was possible. The message to the region was clear. The military imbalance that had tilted so heavily in Israel's favor could now be countered with intelligence, timing, and the right application of technology. For smaller actors and long-suppressed movements, this was a psychological liberation. At the same time, among Israel's allies and within its own population, the emotional toll was undeniable. The nation that had once prided itself on rapid response, technological edge, and an ironclad defense suddenly found itself questioning everything. Citizens who had long trusted in the warning sirens and interception systems now saw the possibility of failure in real time. The myth of perfect protection was gone. Confidence eroded not just in physical systems, but in leadership, readiness, and strategic foresight. This psychological unraveling posed a deeper challenge than the military loss itself. Iran, aware of this dynamic, didn't just target defense installations. It targeted Israel's self-image by avoiding indiscriminate civilian casualties and instead dismantling the core of Israel's power structure. It struck at the roots of pride and control. The psychological effect was so profound because it bypassed propaganda and confronted reality. It turned fear into belief for Iran's allies and turned belief into fear for Israel and its supporters. In one operation, the region's emotional map was redrawn, not by occupying territory, but by occupying the mind. In the end, this moment marked more than a clash between two rival powers. It signaled a turning point in the very architecture of regional dominance. What the world witnessed was not just a breach of air defenses, but a breach of long-held illusions. Iran's strike was a masterclass in modern warfare, precise, unexpected, and deeply symbolic. It exposed vulnerabilities that had been masked for decades, shifted perceptions across continents, and challenged the monopoly of fear that once protected Israel's position in the Middle East. The silence of the world, the shattered confidence within Israel, and the rising morale across a fractured region all point to a single truth. The rules of engagement have changed. This was not just a military blow. It was a psychological awakening, a recalibration of power, and a bold message to every nation watching. That message is simple but undeniable. No empire is invincible, and no defense is eternal. Thank you for joining us through this journey of truth, strategy, and awakening. Stay aware, stay engaged, and never stop questioning the narrative. Good luck, and may courage guide your path forward.